Today on the Criss Cinema Podcast, two films that appear to have no connection whatsoever, but the secret is written in their DNA. 1960s Psycho and 2012's The Place Beyond the Pines on the Criss Cinema Podcast.
Two fellows meet accidentally, like you and me. No connection between them at all. Never saw each other before. They swap murders. Crisscross.
Wilson! I'm sorry, Wilson! A day may come when the courage of men fails, but it is not this day.
Hello and welcome to the Criss Cinema Podcast, where we crisscross cinema history to find connections you may have never recognized. It may not be apparent right off the bat why today's films are connected, but by the end of this episode, you'll see that the connection between Psycho and The Place Beyond the Pines is down to their storytelling DNA. My name is Aaron Wilson, and I'm a filmmaker honing my craft.
And I'm Mark Clovis, and I'm a person honing my viewing.
If you like what you hear on today's show, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Transcend Entertainment. That's TRANSCEND Entertainment. On today's episode, as always, we will review our two films, and at the end, we go crisscross to compare and contrast them both. But first, Mark, what media has been consuming you?
Well, I'd like to think it wasn't quite consuming me, but I have been. I did recently go and see Ferrari in the theater.
Oh, nice.
Which was not bad. I did enjoy it. I mean, the performances were great. It was visually great. It was also interesting for me to go into a film about history and not have any idea what to expect. So it was the events that they describe in it would
be uncommon.
Uncommon, yes.
For those who don't know, he's a history teacher.
It's not as uncommon as you might think, but it is uncommon, especially after seeing Napoleon and
right.
other history films that have recently been in the mix, like Oppenheimer. But this one was the events in it were a little shocking, especially as I was keying off of what is the filmmaker doing, and I didn't know in advance what the filmmaker is leading to. So it was interesting.
That's cool.
How about you? What have you been viewing?
I watched a documentary called Hitchcock Truffaut, and it's actually based off the book where it's really famous, where Truffaut had this really long interview, like I think it was a day long with Hitchcock, and he got this book out of it. Mm-hmm. And it's just this interview format going back and forth with the master himself, and it is really fun to watch. I do have a big gripe with it, though.
What's that?
Not once. It's all these high caliber filmmakers in this, and not once was the word suspense mentioned. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You don't know the biggest tool in Hitchcock's toolbox?
That is fascinating.
Unless it was on the editing floor, I don't know. But there's a lot of mentions of like the meaning behind his work, and lots of stuff gets read into Hitchcock for whatever reason. But
not having seen it or read the book, and I've heard of it, but I haven't had a chance to delve into it. I wonder if they felt that they had the same problem that I felt I had going into Psycho, which is that how do you find something new to say?
Everything's been said. Right?
Yeah, when it feels as though everything has been said, and I mean, Hitchcock is such a master filmmaker, and he's been so inspirational. Mm-hmm. And they probably, and you have to think about how often they must talk about Hitchcock amongst themselves,
right?
And say, sometimes we're like, well, there's this thing I want to do. Go see North by Northwest, and we'll try to do something similar to that, or some as an homage or something like that.
Yeah, I just boggled my mind though that like such a simple plot function. I don't know. Suspense is my niche. So it's, I feel like I'll get more into this if you want to. I'll get into this like crazy on my other show. The Facets of Story is all about this, but I feel like it's a key to storytelling, and it gets to the heart of it in a certain way. It's about when you reveal the information up front with suspense, or at the rear with mystery, and that gives you your spectrum, and you got to find the sweet spot. But off my nerdy pedestal, and let's get into today's episode. So, just like always, we'll be diving deep. Fair warning, here there be spoilers. Now our review of Psycho.
Well, this is a film that I've actually seen both these films before. It's the first time that we, in doing this, that I've seen both the films before we did it. I had to, kind of adopt a fresh perspective, shall we say, because I was thinking about now that we're doing this comparison, I was on the hunt for things.
Yeah.
But I can't watch Psycho and not just constantly marvel at all the wonderfulness in it. Like those opening credits. I
was going to say that. The only thing I can think of that's similar is, and this is very intentional, of M. Night Shyamalan's Signs, those credits of the boom, 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 whatever that music is. But it's so amazing. They can enrapture you with just these simple Saul Bass lines, and that score is just amazing.
He has such a minimalist style, and there's something about that I find appealing. And you see it as well in the one movie that he actually directed. Which
I didn't know he directed.
I get the impression he always had an itch to direct, because there's this controversy that he directed like the shower scene in Psycho. And,
I'd heard that.
Yeah, but he in the early 1970s he directed a movie called Phase 4, and it's a really fascinating movie. It's a science fiction movie. And the premise is that there's been some sort of alien presence that has mutated ants in the Arizona desert to where they become basically a hyper-intelligent hive colony. And it's about the investigation of it by this team, by these two scientists. There is this refugee. So it's like the cast is incredibly minimal. Mm-hmm. And it's as much nature photography as it is. It's not high concept science. It's not them with science with soldiers and flamethrowers.
I was thinking about them when you were talking.
No, these are normal sized ants. It's just that now they have this genius intellect, and there's this, and the scientists are trying to figure out what does this mean for humanity. And there's this war between the scientists and the ants, and it's just so fascinating. I mean, it's not a great film, but it is, I think, a underrated classic, and it really is.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's Saul Bass's design style, unleashed.
I'd love to see his framing and how he, like his cinematography. That would be great.
Of course, you see a lot of it in this film too, because he gets this interesting credit for like scene construction. I think is how they refer to it in the credits, or scene design.
I think that what that means is he did the storyboards. So for the shower scene, I think that's what he actually contributed, which is not nothing. Like that's exactly what the scene turned out being. Like they went with those storyboards as close as possible.
And I think it was more than just the shower scene as well, because you had that scene at the end, and it was Norman Bates sitting there, and he has the voice of his mother in his head. And I'm watching that. I'm listening to that as I'm watching it, but I'm also seeing it's Bates. And something that I cannot imagine ever being in an actual police station, which is a completely blank wall.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, they're closing in on him, and it's just the minimalism. And I cannot think of another Hitchcock movie from this era, and admittedly I haven't seen all of them, but where there's that sort of minimalist style. That to me smacks a bit of the Bass approach.
Yeah, probably. So we go into this window it's Phoenix, Arizona.
In December, which is the only time that you're going to have a window open in Phoenix is the winter.
And they go into this, and I actually know where this building is. I've looked at it on Google Maps. And they go into the window and pan over to the bed, and you see these two.
Marion Crane and Sam Loomis. They're there finishing a lunchtime of sin.
Yeah.
And it is, and it's something that I sometimes think about. And I think I mentioned this in one of the previous episodes, which is I watch a film and I think about sometimes how did the audience at that time view it? And given this is 1960, you still have the production code, although it's beginning to fray.
This is R-rated for the 60s. Like this is probably a lot of what earned the R rating.
Exactly. And you're seeing this, but you're seeing it's interesting how the sinfulness is limited.
Right.
In that Marion's not married. Sam is divorced.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was trying to piece that together because when I was a kid, I'm like, oh, he's bad. But, I was a teenager when I first saw this. But yeah, I'm like, what's wrong with this situation? Like neither of them is connected. Like,
yeah. But they definitely set up it's an important scene in the sense that they set up she obviously loves him.
Right.
But he is constrained by his alimony, his debts from his dad, that he needs money. Yeah. And it's the idea, and this is, one of the oldest stories of time. If he just had the money and could deal with all these problems, they could live their life together. And that's obviously so important for what happens next.
Yeah, and it sets up the next scene of she goes back to work, and this guy comes in, cowboy guy with a big hat. Mm-hmm. And there's an interesting line that he says of it's December 11th. I mean, it's Arizona, but it's December 11th. And he's like, it's hot as fresh milk out there. And it's like, in December? And it's, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. But
well, that's where you get to the scene where he is. I kind of wonder if it wasn't meant to be that hot, but he says that because of what he's doing, which is he is engaged in the most uncomfortable flirting I've ever seen in a Hitchcock movie.
So blatant.
It's like the way he just leans in on her, and he's practically fanning himself this $40,000 because a man of his age and girth is going to most likely attract a woman of Marion Crane's appearance by the money. So it's like, oh my gosh, look at all this money I have, and and she is. You could tell this is not her first. The first time she's attracted the unwanted attentions of a middle-aged, wealthy white dude, and she's like, I'm just going to be, because after all, she is the secretary, and she can't afford to lose the business.
And then, of course, she steals the money.
Mm-hmm. And she, what's fascinating is seeing how she makes this decision, and it's a bad decision, and how she doesn't know what to do next.
Yeah, the first shot when she's in the hotel room, at this point, I don't think she's even decided that she's going to take it. It's just sitting on the bed, and she keeps walking around, and we have these Hitchcock shots of the close-ups of, and this is mentioned in the Truffaut episode, they read a whole lot of things into these close-ups. So it's like a dream, and it's like, okay, it's saying the money is important. That's all it's saying. Anyway, but you see the money, and her walking around it in the background, and it's like you just feel this tension of, is she going to do it?
It's like the telltale heart in Poe's story. It's just kind of ticking there, and although it's not a time bomb in a sense, it's this idea of promise.
Yeah,
and how it
kind of is a time bomb. That's how it functions. It's a suspense element.
True. I mean, but it's also the same. But it's tempting. It's $40,000 worth of temptation.
Yeah.
And it's like if she does this and acts upon her impulse, then their problems will be solved. And very quickly, they don't solve the problems; they create the problems.
Yeah, so many more problems. In the middle of this movie, you'll see.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody's seen this movie.
But I love how it unfolds. How it's like she cannot make a criminally wise decision. She, the cop wakes up and the cop wakes her up on the side of the road, and she just might as well has, suspect on her forehead.
Yeah.
And then she goes and exchanges
a great suspense scene. Just that cop at the window, and he's so much bigger and she's small in the car, and it's like, what she's doing. And the cop with the glasses, that's what it is, of you don't know what he's thinking. So you can read anything into his face.
And I have to say, by the way, this is one of the things I loved about this movie, which is I'm a huge fan of the old Perry Mason TV series. And that actor, Mort Mills, he was a regular. He played one of the cop. He played one of the few recurring characters in it, which was, he played a sheriff named Landro. But you also have
he's got a type.
Yeah, exactly. He also was in a few episodes of Mission Impossible. He played a gangster in that one. So, but also a cop too. So you're right, it was type. But you also have Vaughn Taylor, who is the manager at the real estate office. When they go and see California Charlie, that's John Anderson. He was a Perry Mason regular. Larry on, you have Lerone Tuttle. She was the wife of the sheriff in the movie. And I don't know if Perry Mason was the Law and Order of its day, and it just rotated through a bunch of actors, because I know that was the producer's thing. I can't remember her name.
And also, I think this might be a key to understanding why that is. TV actors did not work in film back then.
Yeah.
And Psycho went in very low budget. That's why it's black and white. That's why everything about it. He did it with the TV crew from the Alfred Hitchcock Presents, because nobody wanted to take this film. So he did it himself, and he mortgaged his house actually to make this movie. There's a great book about it called Alfred Hitchcock and the Making of Psycho, I think.
Oh, really?
And the movie Hitchcock, actually it spawned 2 movies, I think. Well, there's Hitchcock, and then there's one other one maybe. But
No, it is fascinating because there are other actors who were not Perry Mason actors who were in it, but who were TV actors like the sheriff himself and Simon Oakland. He was very common on television at the time.
Yeah.
But the lead actors, Janet Leigh, John Gavin, they're not necessarily the best actors in this one. I mean, they do fine with their roles, but it's really the supporting cast that carries this film.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Anthony Perkins.
I was going to say that.
Let's not forget Anthony Perkins here, but we haven't quite got to him yet. But it's like, so he goes. It's like you see, going back to what I was saying. So then you get to California Charlie, and she's trying to swap out cars, which is a great idea, except that you don't do it in front of the law. He's literally watching her
in the background, and it's so unclear to me why he's there. He's there for the suspense.
Yeah.
But like, what is this officer thinking? Like, does she, I don't think he thinks she's up to anything. He's just there.
Yeah.
But there's such a great line that he opens with the salesman when he comes up, California Charlie. Mm. And he's like, I'm in no need for trouble. And it's like, what? You think he knows. Yeah. This is the suspense thing you play with the reveals of there's close calls. And he's like, the first customer of the morning is always trouble. It's like, oh, okay. He doesn't know.
There is one, though, important role, though, that the police officer plays.
Yeah.
And that is, he's the one who plants the suggestion in her head about the motel.
Because I hadn't caught that.
Because remember, she's sleeping in her car.
Oh, yeah. There's a line when,
like, why are you sleeping in your car? We got so many motels around here. So then later on, when she is driving and she's kind of like, okay, sleeping in my car is suspect behavior, draws the attention of the law. I guess I'm going to have to find a hotel or motel.
Yeah.
And that gives us the Bates Motel. Yeah,
which proves to be not a great place for her. But on the drive to the hotel, this one hit me like crazy because I have an anxiety disorder, but I didn't know about it back when I watched the movie to begin with. But her going through all these thoughts in her head of what these people might be thinking, what they might be doing, that's anxiety right there. Like, it shows you. The only difference is she gets like a smug look of she's happy about it, of she's getting away with it. So she's not actually feeling the anxiety. But I connected to that at first. And it's interesting.
You get a bit of the anxiety from the Bernard Herrmann score, and he is just so brilliantly done. I read that he did not have the budget for a full orchestra, so he did a string orchestra, and it's just
that's the sound of Psycho now.
Yeah, it is. It literally is.
And anytime you hear a violin with sharp strings, you're like, oh, that's Psycho.
You just play it. It's like, it literally is a slashing sound. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then now we get to Norman Bates, and Anthony Perkins. He is just. I mean, it's difficult to think of a more iconic performance in the history of film. I kind of feel like it's almost unfair to Perkins that this ended up being his career, because
that's too bad.
Yeah, but I mean, because he just nails it so perfect,
and he's so charming too. Like, he just pulls you in.
You get what I was thinking of when I was rewatching it, which is that you see him with Marion, and he is. And Norman is so nervous, and you're getting the sense that he doesn't know how to deal with, be around women, and it's underscored when Arbogast shows up. And initially, he is cool as a cucumber, and he's not stressed out by Arbogast, and it's not something that is telegraphed. It's not something that's broadcast, and you can see how it changes as Arbogast starts to interrogate him. But he plays on those elements of the personality so well. He's not. I think a lesser actor would have made Norman Bates a constantly nervous character, kind of embracing that aspect of him and not considering the other parts. But you get the impression that that there is a situational aspect to it. That Marion's there. He's drawn to Marion, or if you want to go with an alternative reading of it, he's trying to deal with Marion and trying to maybe figure out why he's not drawn to her or something like that. But yeah.
This is kind of a blink and you'll miss it moment, but the part where he goes to grab the room key, you see him consider which key to take. Like, he's going for like a middle room at first, but then he goes to choose room 1 right next to the office. And I just thought of another reason why that might be. But there's 2 ways that can play of whether you've seen the twist or not. And we're in spoilers. So, and if you haven't seen this movie, I mean, come on. But
stop now, watch it now.
Yeah. Well, my dad and my mom my mom has seen it before, but
yeah,
she forgets what happens in movies. But it can play one of 2 ways of, like, he knows she's lying from when she looks at the paper and sees Los Angeles on it. And she's like, I'm from Los Angeles. And so he's just like, kind of, okay, I don't trust you. Or this could be the point at which he decides he's going to kill her. But
I felt that played up a bit more later when they're having that dinner where you get the emphasis upon how alike they are, that they're in their own private traps, that they're dealing with their own inner demons. And that goes back to the voiceover you're talking about, because that anxiety, I thought it was less that she was, kind of being smug about it. I read it and I'm thinking back to, when it first happens as she's leaving Phoenix, about how she's constantly, because she doesn't know she's not comfortable with what she's doing, she's out of her element, that she's constantly thinking worst case scenario, that these things are indicating that they're onto her. So she has to constantly make decisions that bring her to this point where, she's basically, she's kind of baited the trap that she's now in through her own anxiety. And it was interesting because I had never really thought about it until I rewatched that sense of how, that element of similarity between them and how it creates a bond.
Yeah, I love that scene. That's just the best. And the writing for that of like a foreshadowing they do in that scene is great. Like there's a line from Norman where he says, I'm sorry about my mother. She's not quite herself today. It's like, are you kidding me? It's like, this is the way that you do foreshadowing. It's so close to giving away the thing that this is what I'm talking about I've talked about in previous episodes of, you don't want to hold your cards close to the chest. You want to be so close to revealing it that when you rewatch it, you're like, how did I not see that?
Yeah, of course, it's a real challenge with this film because this film is so iconic. It's one of those films that you effectively know everything that's going to happen before it happens because it has been so, emulated, duplicated, riffed on in the 60 years since that, so it's you kind of because that you don't realize that it's not just because we know it's going to happen. It's the fact that you have that allusion to it.
Also, the other line of you eat like a bird, and there's all these stuffed birds around the room, and it's like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kill you.
The taxidermy is a nice touch.
Yeah, that is. I think that's taken from the book.
But then you get to the scene where she is reconsidering her choices. Now, I've heard that that Hitchcock supposedly was convinced that she was deciding to change things. But I'm watching as Marion's writing down the figures, and I feel like the way she tears up the paper and throws away, it's like she's saying that she's in too deep. I mean, granted, it's only the $700 she spent on the car, but that she seems to be committed to it. And
I think that conversation is what changed it. Like caught in her own little traps. She realizes what she's doing, and she's like, okay, this is not who I am. And she's
but has she decided that she's going to try to get out of it, or has she decided that she's trapped?
Definitely. Actually, Hitchcock said that for sure. So yeah. So there's a couple other foreshadowings too of when he talks about his mother, alluding to the house. He's like, it's cold and damp like a grave. It's like, are you kidding me? This is such great writing. And then she's as harmless as a stuffed bird. And it's like, she is a stuffed bird.
This is where I regret not having read Robert Bloch's novel before we did this, because he wrote it. It was adapted by Joseph Stefano. Now, Stefano's a name that not a lot of people are familiar with, but he went on to do, along with Leslie Stevens, The Outer Limits, which is one of the iconic science fiction television shows of all time. They did a remake of it in the 90s, and I'm convinced that Stefano was the better storytelling path.
Oh, he definitely is. Yeah. Like I read a book that was actually 3 different movies about the writers from 3 different movies, which you don't often see that perspective. It's always about Hitchcock, but it's about the writing of The Birds, Psycho, and Marnie. I think Marnie was probably the weakest of the, well, as a movie, but the writing of Psycho is just fascinating. Like his process with Hitchcock. I can't remember much about it off the top of my head, but check out that book if you want to. I forget what it's called, but yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. But it's a great book.
But of course, the writing is so much more powerful when you have that effective staging and framing of the visuals. I mean, you think about all the ways they could have done the stabbings, these scenes.
Yeah,
it's the visual just kind of really helped. They complement what's happening with the words so well.
And the visuals leads straight into the shower scene.
Yes.
And that's going into this movie. Like, I was afraid when I was a kid of, I'm going to see nudity. There's no nudity. Like, they cut around it like crazy, but it's amazing. Like, the framing of just the different angles is perfect. And for modern movies, this is about normal frame cutting or the shot length. But for back in the day, that was like, they didn't know what they were saying. They were like, they were cutting on the knife strokes and they had the violin going,
yeah.
And you think you're seeing a woman get stabbed, but you don't see any. The only blood you see is at the end when it's going down the shower drain.
Yeah. And that for me was actually the best part of the scene. I mean, I watched the stabbing now. To me, it
yeah,
with all that's happening, it feels a little hokey. But you have that whole scene where she's there and the water's draining away. And I think what makes it so powerful is the music has stopped. So all you hear is the patter of the water and the girl in the
water going down the drain
as her life is draining away. And she is just really, it to me, it is such a perfect capping of that scene.
Yeah.
It's like the frenzy of the moment is gone. And
that shot where it transitions from going down the shower drain to coming out of her iris in her eye.
Yeah.
I don't know how they got that shot of her not blinking for so long. And it's just coming out slow. Cause back in the day, they couldn't just like take a frame of her eye not moving and track it in there. They couldn't, she had to not move.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, Hitchcock is infamous, I think, for what he puts his actresses through. But I mean, Janet Leigh really did rise to the occasion on that one. So, and then of course, Norman, air quote, shows up.
Yeah.
And he is, and then he cleans up the crime scene.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating to think about how much time they spend just on him doing that. Of course, you have the money, which is in the newspaper, which is now, which is the MacGuffin. It's no longer just the money in the newspaper, and how I was just fascinated by seeing how so many of the shots are framed to feature the newspaper there.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Same thing with her on the bed. He's telling you this is important.
Yeah.
Which is really, it's a MacGuffin and it's not important, but it's giving you that emotion of what's he going to do with the money? And then he throws the money away, and the money is really just a vehicle to, okay, let me start with this question. Cause I'm not sure if, the main character was her. And then you're introduced to the sister and the boyfriend again, and then Arbogast. And then, of course, there's Norman. Who do you think the main character is?
At this point, you wonder if it's going to be the sister. But it briefly becomes Arbogast.
Yeah. You follow Arbogast.
Yeah, you follow Arbogast.
But Norman is the main character.
Yeah, he's become the number, but initially because they go back to Arbogast, and you start to think maybe you, if you don't know the movie, you start to think that it's actually about the investigation. That Arbogast, we're getting, this is a noir with the detective.
But he's dies off pretty quick.
He dies off pretty quick. It especially helps that you have somebody of Martin Balsam's caliber as an actor playing the role. He goes on, of course, to win an Oscar 5 years later, but for obviously a different movie. But he's very good in the role, and you have this question that the characters themselves later express, is he going to be, corrupt? Is he basically going to take the money and run? Yeah. And this is where it's a MacGuffin, because the rest of the movie, they're always assuming that the motivations driving these characters is the money.
Yeah. And Hitchcock throws it away.
Yep.
He tells you very clearly what MacGuffins are for. Like, it's not about the money. It's about him. And there's this great shot where it goes from Norman Bates staring at this car sinking.
Yes.
After he's done this cleanup. And this is why they took it so laboriously of the whole cleanup.
And they showed him taking the newspaper and throwing in the trunk of the car before he.
Yeah. And it's sinking in the swamp, I guess. Yeah. With her body and the money in the back.
Yeah. The
two things you cared most about. And the car stops sinking.
Yes.
And you're like, oh no. And it's like, what? Oh no. You want him to get away with this. And then it starts to sink again. At that moment, you are on board with Norman, and you get that close up of Norman. And he's your main character.
Yeah.
And you're concerned for Norman when these guys come by and they're investigating. And it's bizarre because it's like, this guy killed you don't know that he killed it. That's probably where a lot of the sympathy comes from, of he's just cleaning up his mother's murder.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is just the worst situation he's got himself in.
Yeah.
And he had nothing to do with it. Yeah. Like this lady just came to his hotel and got killed by his mother, and he's got to clean it up. And it's just being the good son. And I don't know. This handoff is just so great.
It is. And he does, and it's so unusual for time. Nowadays we have so many films which we feature anti-heroes, which we even make films around villains we try to redeem.
Yeah.
But back then it was so uncommon.
Yeah.
To do that and not have it. And you would sometimes have a villain or someone as the centerpiece. I'm thinking like James Cagney in White Heat. But he was never the protagonist.
Joker, and more recently.
Yeah, nowadays we have the Joker. But this is the first film I can think of where, not only is it the first, if one of the first, if not the first slasher movie, but it's the first film I can think of where you have the antagonist becoming the protagonist, becoming the center of the film.
I think the reason it works is because you don't know he's an antagonist until you got the twist at the end.
Yeah. But again, and that's where there's part of me that would just so love to be able to watch this film without all of that.
Yeah, without any that cultural background.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Knowing exactly what's going to happen, having seen the clips so many times before I actually got to the movie for the first time, to be able to watch it and not know what's going to happen, and to have that reveal. Even though you watch it now, you kind of see how you could puzzle it out a little bit.
Yeah.
How she's always in shadow. You never see her directly. So it's enough there.
Well, you don't see her at all, except for I think there's one shot where he's carrying her downstairs.
Yes,
you just hear her behind doors, see the silhouette of her in the window, and they don't show her.
Yeah,
but you hear her a lot.
Yeah.
So going into this movie, I was thinking, oh, it must be the sister that's the main character. It's not.
Yeah,
because the way they play out the scenes after this, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Is you feel for Norman because you don't want him to get found out.
Do you know where I think you find that a good example of that is when he's being interrogated by Arbogast, and Arbogast is going over the register.
Yeah.
And there's this great shot. And
I know what you're talking, or he's leaning over.
Yeah, he's chewing the gum.
It's really weird angle of his face.
It's a weird angle of his face. It shows off, Anthony Perkins' handsomeness.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of underscoring, he's having a conversation with Arbogast, and it's very clear by this point that Arbogast is not the protagonist, because he's entirely off screen. It's entirely about Norman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which underscores that point you were making.
And you feel it like it's not just us saying, it's like me thinking back. I'm like, it's probably the sister that's the main character. I watched it and I'm like, nope, it's Norman. And I think it makes that twist so much more impactful. Cause you're like, I was following this character and siding with them. And now they're, oh, what are they? Like,
and then they set up Arbogast, and then Arbogast dies.
Yeah.
It's pretty soon. It's like, I guess we're going to have to get invested in Norman, because every character we get invested in ends up dying. So that's when once Arbogast is gone, you start having the unraveling of the mystery.
Right.
or you start having, or perhaps it's, I should not unraveling. You started the mystery being constructed, which is Lila and Sam go to the sheriff, and the sheriff says, "Well, Mrs. Bates is dead. She's been dead 10 years. We buried her."
Which is a mind blowing moment right there.
So it's like, did they bury her? Maybe what's going on here? Again, what's going on, but thanks to everything, but at the same time, it's like without that knowledge, you're like, well, okay, what exactly? There's definitely a twist here at some point. You just have to figure out what it is. Which
I'm sure audiences in 1960 weren't expecting anything.
Yeah. And especially, and that's where the fruit cellar scene, I think, is a really good one, where Norman's having the argument with his mother, and she's like, I don't want to be put down the fruit cellar, and Norman convinces her, and you actually see an overhead shot of him taking her down there. So it's like, well, she's got to be, she can't be dead, because the conversation is taking her down there. So
we just saw her. It's clever that they, on rewatching, it's not a cheat. It's like, she's not moving or anything. It's a high angle shot, so you don't expect her to move a lot.
And plus the fact that he's cradling her.
Yeah. Going back to the Arbogast scene just real quick. They show the whole walk up those steps, and it's a very for movies back then, it was more common to show all the movement of something, but you'd seen Norman come out and come in really quick, and I'd have to look at it, but those shots are like 3 seconds or something like that, but they show the whole walk up, and this is the suspense. We know there's a killer in this house. He's going to speak with her, and we know what's going to happen. So he draws it out.
Yes.
Modern horror movies don't understand this. They do the jump scares of, they don't understand the suspense of, you tell them there's a monster in this building, and then he goes in every single second of that. They'd cut it down now and just like cut right to the moment, past the walking up the stairs to just the stabbing of the face, and you'd get like a moment of surprise out of that, and that would be it.
Yeah. But definitely builds, and the nice thing about building too is it becomes a surprise, because you don't think they're leading to something, but it's not going to be that sudden, and then boom, it does.
Yeah, happen. You get both. You're gonna have your cake and eat it too, kind of.
So then you have, like, the authorities are investigating, and they come up with nothing. So Lila and Sam have to do their own investigation, and I like it because, again, they can't. What Norman is doing, nowadays, I feel like it's become so trite. You're crazy. We have entire shows premised around serial killers, but they just cannot imagine that's about anything other than money. And that's why I love that conversation between Sam and Norman, where Sam is like, you're doing this. And I'm trying to think, is this the first time Norman's even, no, Norman heard about the money, I think, from Arbogast.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, Norman doesn't even know what's in the envelope when he's going through. Actually, it's in a newspaper. Yeah, she hid it in a newspaper, so he just throws the newspaper in there. Yeah. It's not about that for him. Yeah. And so that makes it more suspense, because it's like he doesn't know about this thing, and now he's being interrogated by this guy who does know. And us as the audience is like, no, like he doesn't know, it's not him. It actually, I think, helps him in a way, because when they're constantly interrogating about the money, he can sit there and total honesty say, what $40,000? Yeah, definitely. He's never seen it. They're throwing it out there, and so I guess the suspense would be stronger with the Arbogast interrogating him, because it's like, okay, it's more about the murder than it is about the money with that one. But it says something about the time that the characters can't possibly contemplate that it's about something other than the money. That is just that it must be that motive. They just need to, and if they can simply find the money, they can prove it. Yeah. And they're not going to find the money, because it's not about the money. Yeah, definitely. And so when, after Arbogast dies, Lyra and forget the boyfriend's name, Sam, they go up to the house. Well, they pose as a couple. They pose it as a couple and interrogate Norman. But then we get to the point where she's going up to the house. Yes. And he plays it differently this time. You see it from her point of view. Like, you see close up of her face and a point of view going up to the house, and she's actually taking a different path. She's, instead of going up the stairs, she's going straight at the door. And just that, putting you in her point of view ups the suspense, because you are her. It's not, oh, here's this detective, like, this is the cinematic language. Oh, here's this detective, and he's going up these steps, and now it's, you are her. and you go up these steps and you're expecting the same thing to happen to her.
You feel the fear more.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you contrast that with what's going on simultaneously, where Sam is distracting Norman by interrogating him, and that camera angle is from Norman's perspective. Norman's in close, and Sam's in the back, so Sam is in a way interrogating the viewer almost.
Yeah.
So you're feeling.
I didn't even notice
well.
that. That's a great pickup. But yeah, that's intentional.
Yeah, exactly.
And you feel for Norman and for her going up, and the cutting back and forth. You're worried about her. How is she getting further? Is she getting to them? And then you're wanting to yell at Norman, she's going up there. You need to stop her. And then finally he realizes and he runs off after her.
After knocking out Sam.
Out Sam. Yeah, of course.
So, and then he runs off. And then, of course, you have Lila discovering Mother.
She goes and she sees Mother sitting in the chair and she's like, oh, Mrs. Bates. And she turns her around. Yeah. Oh, empty socket eyes. And she's a corpse. Yeah. And my dad had not seen that scene before.
Oh.
And I was watching his face as he was watching it, and he just had this agape, open mouth look when he saw it. And I'm like, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Like,
I
know it works.
I would have loved to have experienced it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I envy your dad.
And apparently my mom hadn't seen it either when I wasn't looking at her.
Yeah. So you had the info dump for the psychiatrist, and you know, I mean, Simon.
It's the only scene I would have cut.
Yeah. Simon Oakland, he's a fantastic actor.
He plays that scene to the nines,
but it's so exposition heavy.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes me feel like, you know, maybe the audience in 1960 needed that to kind of connect the dots, but it was just I'm glad that I'm glad that they were able to kind of, if you're going to do it, compress it at least one point, but also this where they ended it. They ended it with that great shot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They show a shot in the hallway of the officer taking the blanket to her. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, thank you. And then the last shot after the psychiatrist scene, they could have just done it on this and you'd get it. Of it's Norman sitting in the chair, just, with this look on his face. But like you're moving in on him and you hear Mother's voice over his, and they would have got it, or modern audience would have got it of, oh, he is Mother.
Yes.
And then he ends with that amazing line of, look at that fly on my hand. They'll watch and they'll see that she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Yeah.
And it's so great.
It is.
And then of course they have the double exposure. I don't know if you picked up on this, but as it fades from him to the car being pulled out of the swamp, there's the double exposed skull on his face as it's fading.
I missed that.
No. Yeah.
So, absolutely amazing movie. Man.
Yeah.
And it's again,
classic.
It's the problem with sometimes with old films when they become so iconic that you when you know it's going to happen, it doesn't have quite the same punch. But to me, it's a testament to just how amazing a filmmaker of Hitchcock is, that you can know it's going to happen and it still works.
Still works. And that's how you know it.
Yeah.
Suspense is that strong.
Yeah.
In fact, it works better if you know more, because suspense is built off of you knowing.
Yeah.
It's so great. I'm going to nerd out about suspense so much during the show. But, okay. So that is our review of Psycho. Now let's move on to another very different movie, but it's got a similarity and it'll be interesting if you can spot it. The Place Beyond the Pines from 2012.
This is a film that I'm a little resentful that we're discussing it, because it's a film that hits me very hard.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah. It's a film I watched when it first came out, and I enjoyed it. It's a great film, but it's also one that, you know, I'm a dad, and it's a film, and I'd actually forgot this but reminding it was like opening the wound is how it's a very powerful film about fatherhood.
Yeah, it is
so powerful, and one of the things I think makes it so rich is that it is simultaneously a film about class in America.
Mm-hmm.
And the class part is over. The fatherhood part is a bit more subtle.
And also legacy. I'd say.
And legacy. And it's such a very heady mix that makes it such a fascinating film to delve into.
Yeah. And so we open on this film in a very interesting way. It's a long tracking shot from behind of our main character. He's walking through this carnival, and he gets on a motorcycle and he drives off into the cage.
Yeah, the Globe of Death, I believe is what it's called.
Mm-hmm. And it's these 3 different motorcycle drivers, and they're driving around this cage, and it's a strong opening shot.
And it establishes so much about the character to come. We know that he is a character that does not have fear. He, plays with a switchblade in a way that, person,
Who's sane.
No, I'm saying person with less experience would injure themselves, but
mm-hmm.
he clearly, he's got to the point where now he can just play with it. He's a person who just has a lot of tension, who only seems to be able to release it is when he's, doing the motorcycle. So he's very much a person of action.
Thrill seeker.
Mm-hmm. And a person who doesn't really, doesn't really blink in the face of danger.
And then, of course, we get to this girl from the audience.
Romina.
She comes and she talks to him. She's a past fling. And then it's revealed later on when he comes to visit her house that from the mother
Mm-hmm.
that has a after Psycho that's got a different tang to it. Anyway, but she's got this kid and there's this feeling of, is that mine? And
mm-hmm.
she's like, yeah, this is your son. And it's this great magical moment where he just hands, this is what the whole film rides off of.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just this magic moment where he's staring at his son and that he didn't know he had. And it's clear he wants to be a dad. It's not the case that he knew and he was just being an absent father.
I mean, you get the impression to that point that he is living his best life. He likes what he does. He enjoys the thrill of the, riding the Globe of Death. And you get the impression that Romina was not his first. So he's in this traveling carnival. So he gets to go to town. He gets to, perform, and he has these women swooning over him because he's a bad boy. And all of a sudden, for the first time, and it's not by his choice, but now suddenly he has fatherhood thrust on him. And it's not as in like Romina says, I'm pregnant. He actually has the son
there.
just right there.
Yeah.
And it is such a...
And he steps up. Like you can tell
that he does. But the funny thing is, he doesn't know how.
Yeah, that's a big part of his character.
And it's so sad that he is trying to figure out how can I... So he goes to his boss at the carnival. He wants an advance. And carnivals aren't exactly, minting money even in the 1990s. And so he has to abandon this life that he clearly enjoys in order to be there for his son, but he can't figure out how. And it doesn't help that there's this alternate father figure there.
Yeah.
That's Kofi. Maharishi Ali.
Oh, yeah.
And that gets to just how, it's another example of how there's so much talent in this movie.
Definitely.
And the fatherhood part comes across when he meets Kofi and Romina are leaving to go baptize his son.
Yeah, that scene was powerful.
Yeah, and I feel like that was the scene where he was kind of like, I really need to embrace my obligations as a dad. It's one thing to have your son in front of you. It's another thing to realize here's this big moment in your son's life, and
it's not yours.
It's not yours. You weren't even invited. And it's like, how many of these are you going to lose?
Yeah, he's slipping away from him. And right after it's revealed that he has a son, there's this great scene of drama where I'm not a big drama buff, as like I am a suspense buff, but I can't deny, like, this is great drama of he goes and he confronts Romina about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, there's going to be some fireworks here. And there are some, but it's subdued.
Yeah.
And that's a great scene.
It is. And it kind of, I mean, that's where I had an issue with Romina's motivations. Because,
Yeah.
And it gets to me with what is the greatest flaw of the movie, which is it really marginalizes the women. And you've got Eva Mendes is in it. You have, I can't think of her name. Plays Avery's wife.
Oh, right. Rose Byrne.
Yeah. She's done so many amazing things. And they are just, Eva Mendes has something to do because as Romina, but Rose Byrne is so underused, and they are the two
female leads.
Yeah, they're the two female leads. I think it underscores how much this is about fatherhood in the sense that the women seem so, relegated. Even though Romina is, was faced with solo parenting Jason, even though, Rose Byrne's character is married to a major figure we'll get to a little bit, but it's just, it really is about the men. And I have an issue with that from one respect, but it does help for me as a dad to kind of think more deeply about the idea of what it means to be a father in that role.
From a storytelling point of view, I think that's not, or it may be intentional because this is about fatherhood. And so you gotta make it about one thing. You can't make it about, and it does that very strong through line of, well, we'll get there.
Okay.
Anyway. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's just and this is to get to Ryan Gosling's acting. I mean, his face in the baptism scene, you could tell he is shook.
It's so good. Yeah,
so good.
And then we get to after he asks for money in advance from the carnival, they don't give it to him, and he quits his job at the carnival because they're moving on, and you have no idea where is this money's going to come from. Yeah. But you can tell he's chosen to be a dad, even though he doesn't know what's going to happen. And then we have the scene in the woods where he's riding his motorcycle. And this is intrigue right here. If we see this blue quad riding through, it's just this mysterious thing of it's telling you who is this guy.
Yeah.
And he sees him riding the motorcycle, and I thought he was going to be beat up by this guy at first, but then he pulls up onto his trailer. And then Luke goes up with his motorcycle and sees him, and they get to talking. And this is Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah. Playing Robin.
This role for him is so not like his other roles.
Well, I think it gets to Mendelsohn's chameleon quality because I did think it was very similar to the role he played. I think it was in Killing Them Softly.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I first really kind of keyed on to Ben Mendelsohn when he was in Rogue One. And I'd seen that after I'd seen
that's his type. Basically, he's the high corporate guy that is just about nothing bad guy.
But he's such a chameleon as an actor.
Yeah, this movie is great. Like you see the humanity that he's got. But so he offers him a job.
Yeah,
and
I like the fact that it seems like that Robin is. Ben Mendelsohn's character is honest and sincere, that he's not setting up Luke.
No, he's not at all.
He's genuinely trying to help out. And this gets to the class element. It's this idea that in this situation, Luke is a working class guy. He has a great skill set. He's a great driver. He is a great mechanic, but he cannot figure out how in the America of his time to turn that into a successful living to provide for his son. And so he's scrambling. And Robin says to him, you're a great mechanic, but there isn't enough work for you. And Luke says, well, I can fix up the Mack truck. And Robin says, that's not going to do it either. There is apparently no legitimate means for him to be the man he wants. And if you can't go legitimate to provide for the ones you love, what do you have to do?
Rob Banks,
which of course Robin happens to have some past experience with, coincidentally.
Yeah.
So,
like you said, he does a good job showing that he's a good guy. He's doing bad guy things, but he brings him in on this first job, and what he wants him for is, well, he's the getaway guy, but also the one who robs the bank.
Yes.
And that skill with the motorcycle is shown off, and he's not so great at the bank robbing part.
Well, it's his first time. He hasn't had quite the experience with it. But I love how when after he robs the first bank, and they do a bit of misdirection to get away with it, and he's in the back of the truck that they're using to hide it, and he throws up.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, he's not a cool cucumber. It's not like when he definitely.
You can tell this isn't his thing.
Yeah, exactly. And but at the same time,
even though he's death-defying stunts and all this stuff at the beginning.
Yeah. So I mean, he can cope with fear, but it was really tense, and especially it builds upon what he does at the beginning when he goes into the bank, and he psychs himself up before he pulls out the gun.
Oh yeah,
bangs him, bangs on his helmet and everything, and then he goes and does it, and it's a success.
Yeah,
and he goes to Romina, and this gets to the character, how it's like he's radiating extra bad boyness. So she sleeps with him.
Yeah. Mine skipped that scene because I had it on VidAngel, but my mom was watching. So there's a bunch of F words in there. So we had a lot of mutes.
But it underscores the idea that this seems to be coming together for him.
Yeah.
That Romina's, into him. And then he starts to get a little cocky. He
does it again.
He does it again. He's more brazen about it this time. And it's not just, and it's when he shows up at the house, he just brings stuff.
Yeah, he comes to this guy's house who's the acting father of him.
Kofi,
yeah. And he starts making this crib in his room, and that scene is so tense.
It
like,
is.
if you want to talk about drama, that's another scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the drama and this, I don't know if you call it suspense because you're waiting for him to come back home. Mm-hmm. Like, we know he's here. Yes. He's setting up a crib. He's not planning on leaving anytime soon. You're just waiting for the dad to come back.
And this is when he really sees where he stands with Romina, because when he attacks Kofi and Romina goes to Kofi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's like he sees that he will never, he won't really have that. And of course, what happens? He goes to jail.
Yeah.
He gets locked up and Robin bails him out, but he's determined in a way that it's like he's gone from cocky to reckless.
Yeah, to the point where even Ben Mendelsohn's character, I can't remember his name.
Robin
sabotages his bike.
Yes.
And both me and my mom, when we were watching this, were like, what is he doing? Like, is he like sabotaging it so that we didn't get that, like he's trying to stop him, like the obsession type thing. We just thought he was turning on him, and it's like, what's going on? And then it was clear. But
yeah, initially I remember when I was watching, I was initially thinking, so is he setting it up so that it will break down in the middle of the heist? No, he's trying to prevent the heist.
Yeah.
He is watching out for Robin. He's watching out for Luke in the only way he can think of, which is to, because he knows Luke is younger than him, stronger than him. So just deprive him of his motorcycle.
Right. And then that next heist goes south quick.
Yeah, it's a solo job. And it's like he encounters things he's not used to, the barriers. It takes longer. And of course, he doesn't have that easy getaway. So he's drawn out. He gets out there and the cops are already showing up.
Yeah.
And then you get that great chase scene.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, it is.
Long sustained shots too of like, this must have been crazy to film.
But from what perspective are the shots?
Oh, they're from the cops, aren't they?
From the cops' perspective.
I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah. And I think that gets to where you're starting to see the shift.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you got the thing.
Yeah.
So that's the similarity between these two movies, and we'll get further into that.
Yeah. But it starts with when Luke leaves the bank, it's his perspective. He sees the cops showing up. And then as he's being chased, that's when it shifts to the cop's perspective.
Yeah.
And the first cop, chases him, loses him, and then you get to the second cop. And who's the second cop?
Oh, I'm blanking on his name.
Avery.
Avery, but the actor's name.
Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
Rocket Raccoon himself.
Yes.
So they do the same thing of they've got this, they go from one cop to the other of the interior of the car watching him go, and then we pan over and we see Bradley Cooper's face.
Yeah.
Here we have our new main character that we don't know yet, but we need to, I'll get into why this is important when we get into the crisscross. But we're with Bradley Cooper now, and we're following him. So.
But we still haven't entirely lost Luke, because we are seeing when he wipes out, he goes into someone's house. This is where you see that he's a good guy, because initially it's like, is this going to be a hostage situation? But he lets them go.
Yeah, no.
But he realizes he is doomed, and he makes a choice. And for me as a dad, it's a difficult choice it's both a choice I can appreciate, and yet a difficult choice to imagine doing. And he calls up Romina and says to her, don't tell him about me. Yeah. Oh, that line just hit me. Yeah. And that kind of makes what happens a little bit later in the movie a bit more impactful. But it's a very key moment, which is when Bradley Cooper's character breaks in, and Luke is sitting on the windowsill on the second floor. And who shoots first?
I think Brett. Well, I don't remember. I think they keep it very
no, they don't.
vague. Oh, do they?
They do not keep it vague. Bradley Cooper shoots first.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was going to say.
And then as Avery he's shot, he's falling on the way, he shoots and he hits Bradley Cooper in the leg. This matters because when Avery's in the hospital, this is where you get the shift to the second story. He's being interviewed by the DA and the police chief, and they're asking him this because this is going to be the difference between, righteous shoot and he did something wrong. And he eventually tells them, the Moto Bandit shot first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he knows that that's wrong.
Yeah. That's like a drama-based suspense right there. Yes. We know what happened, what went down, but yeah.
And that becomes so important to his actions for the rest of the movie.
And the thing is about this guy is he's not just officer, he's also a dad.
Yes, he
and
is.
It's to a son the same age as the infant son of Luke.
Yeah.
And they make a point of it, he's looking at I think they show a shot of him looking at his son. He's talking to Rose Byrne, his wife, later. And he's like, I can't look at him.
Yeah.
Like, cause he found out he had a son and it was the same age. And it's like, I can't look at my son now.
He really feels, it gets to something I think that we so often wave away in so much media, which is the impact of doing something like that. Yeah. And I think it trivializes life. And this one of the things I so enjoy about this movie is he is coping with the consequences. I mean, he's aware of, and this gets to one of my all-time favorite lines, which is from Unforgiven, about how when you kill someone, you take away everything he is and everything he's got and everything he's ever going to be. Mm-hmm. And he realizes that there's an additional layer. He's taken away this baby's father. Yeah. And he so struggles with that. And and Cooper, I mean, yeah, he's so convincing at it. I feel the same way in a situation like that.
And there's the interesting thing with this, that this might be better for the crisscross, but I'll just cover it now, is there's this interplay with these characters this is not necessarily something that Hitchcock would do, of the drama side of it, of they're both dads, and they've got this kind of spiral dancing around each other thing of this connects them. Yeah. This is just some random stranger that shot our main character, but this is what's connecting us to him and the through line that's coming through.
And of course that then you have what happens later in the movie, which we'll get to in a bit, but then you find, you not only do you see him having trouble coping with it, you see that he's not with the best crowd. Yeah. And that's where you get DeLuca, who is played by the absolutely amazing Ray Liotta.
Yeah, he's so great at being a bad guy.
It's just, I almost feel bad for him in the sense that, again,
I watched Field of Dreams after this. Yeah. I could not. I'm like, that guy's not okay. I don't know. It was not the right movie to watch before Field of Dreams. Well, if you don't know, in that movie, he plays one of the ghost baseball players, like the main one that he talks to.
I think it's Shoeless Joe, or does he play the...
Yeah, Shoeless Joe. Yeah.
Shoeless Joe, yeah.
And he's supposed to be this really heart-warming character, and it's like, nope, that's not working for me.
I think Goodfellas ensured that Ray Liotta would never be wanting for work, provided it was that particular type of work. But he is...
it's his type.
Yeah, but he is so good at it. And you have that scene where DeLuca shows up with two of his buddies, and it kind of reminds me about how, when kids show up at your house and they want to take your son out to something, and you're not entirely comfortable with those friends, but and you get that tension scene where Rose Byrne,
for the wife,
and and this is where I kind of really resent how the women are marginalized, because basically it's dumped on her and she's just there. Yeah. And in Rose Byrne, she is trying to do her best with that role, but it's clearly not about her. Mm-hmm. And it's about the fact that she...
Well, her thing is she doesn't want him to go.
And she knows
that's kind of her whole character in this. So she doesn't want him to go back out.
Yeah. But Avery's kind of like, he, maybe because he's feeling guilty, maybe he's not feeling himself, he goes along with it. And what are they going to do? They're going to go commit crimes.
Yeah. And he's like in the car as they're going along, and he's like, you guys know that I haven't returned to duty yet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they're like, "Oh, this is what this stuff did anyway." And what do? They go to they go to Kofi's house.
Yeah.
And they're there basically to harass Romina,
to get her to tell him where the money is.
And she never tells them.
Yeah.
But there's such a great menace.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And of course the fact is that Avery, DeLuca, the other two cops, they're all white. And you have Romina, who's Hispanic, and you have Kofi, who's black. And
he mentions, like, does your mother have papers? Like,
yeah. Well, there's that great scene where they kind of underscore that earlier or maybe it's a little bit later, about how what Avery's done is that he's had a righteous shoot and the bad guy died and he was white, as in, like, you know, they can't even make it a race thing. So he's like, it's like the best of all outcomes for him.
He's in a good place until but he gets in with those guys.
Yeah. And they basically bully them. They take the money. What are they going to say? Oh, they took the money we had stashed from the crimes. But they're not. This isn't a search. There's no search warrant because they're deluded because these are all bad cops.
Yeah, and then it leads into just that amazing scene where they go up to the crib, and again, both suspense and drama. They go into real quick. I'm going to jump back to Psycho. That movie. I was keeping a tally of suspense scenes. So there were 14 suspense scenes in Psycho. Mm-hmm. And for Place Beyond the Pines, there were 3. But these ones, like, they just tied suspense and drama together. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because it's the same thing as with putting the crib in the room to begin with. And now the baby's in the crib and the guy's like, we gotta get it without waking up the baby. Here, you've got a kid, pick up the baby.
Yeah.
And that picking up the baby is just so suspenseful and so wrong. And it's a great scene.
And so it just turns his guilt up to 11.
Yeah.
And, but he is, but everything goes back to work. He's kind of trying to process this stuff, and he goes and talks to the police chief. And this is an interesting scene because he has this idea. He's now a Medal of Honor recipient. He is this cop hero, and he is so ambitious. And this is the other really defining trait of this character. And this is where you see the contrast, because this goes back to the class thing. Mm-hmm. Avery is not like the other cops. His dad's a judge.
Oh, yeah.
Avery's already an attorney. He's first year rookie cop, but he's already has a law degree. So Avery is basically a white collar guy who's in what is generally regarded as a blue collar profession.
Yeah.
And he has this presumption that is hilarious to hear him see about. He wants to be put in charge of this task force. He wants to be made lieutenant. And the chief's like, whoa, slow your roll there.
Yeah.
You're a hero, but you have 2 options. You got to retire on disability, or we're going to put you back to work, something you're comfortable doing. He's not comfortable with going out, so they stick him in the property room.
Yeah.
And that, of course, sets up his next encounter with the Lucas crew.
Yeah. And this was interesting that he goes again and he does it again. It's kind of like the robbery thing. And this is a through line of, I saw like a trail of sin going from, and it's very direct, going from Luke to now Avery.
Yeah. And
we'll see where that goes from there.
And you get to the point, and you get that great scene. I think this is probably the next suspense scene you're referring to, which is where he's feeling guilty about the cash, tries to give it to Romina. Romina's like, she doesn't want to deal with that again. Yeah. So he takes it to the chief, and the chief proves what a jerk he is, because he's like, stop, don't tell me another word.
Yeah.
I don't be legal.
Well, this wouldn't qualify as suspense if we knew that.
No, not this.
Not this.
But then you see him talking to DeLuca, and then DeLuca pulls Avery over.
Oh, that's so, yeah.
And he's like,
I may have missed that one. So there may be 4, but yeah, that's great.
And he's like, we need to go have a conversation.
That scene, oh my goodness.
And this is where
you're like, he's dying.
Yeah,
right now.
We're gonna go to the place beyond the pines where nobody's gonna be.
Yeah. There's a shot of DeLuca looking in the cabin. I'm sure they tried this a million times to get it just right. If you just see a piece of his face peeking in and just one eye.
Yeah.
And from that you just get this. He's not going to be okay.
Yeah. And yet he goes along with it because he's kind of swept up in, it kind of goes back to, I think, from the moment of the shooting, he has been swept up in this whole current of events beyond his control, and he cannot get himself out.
Yeah.
But he makes that key choice right when they get to the spot. He takes off. And who does he go to? He goes to his dad.
Oh, yeah.
And his...
I hadn't even picked up on the father thing.
And this is where you have the father helping out his son. And to me, I missed it the first time I saw it, but the second time, because I was thinking about the fatherhood thing, I came to appreciate. I mean, he's like, there's one way you can get your... He's not going to save his son.
Yeah.
But he's going to tell his son, which is, what, father should do. This is what we need to do. And he knows it's going to be tough.
Yeah. He tells him, you got to do the hard thing. I think he says, you know what you have to do.
But because, and it basically is, and so he says, this is what you need to do, and gives that father's advice. And you can tell the love. Harris Yulin, I think, is an underrated actor.
He doesn't, the dad.
Yeah, the dad. He's been in tons of stuff. I mean, he certainly has never wanted for employment, I don't think, but he's never quite gotten the profile that he deserves. But he does such a great job of just basically saying, conveying the love and concern, but not in a showy way, like, oh, son, don't do it. He's that, he's concerned. He loves the son, but he's got to work this out for himself, and that's what Avery does.
Well, just real quick to touch on his character, like I don't know, he struck me as like either very naive or like very gullible. Just going into, I guess he doesn't know that these guys are like corrupt cops, but it's like, maybe it's because I've seen it already, but I don't know.
I think it's because he just, like I said, I think it's because he has been, ever since he's been shot, he has been in a world not of his making.
No, that's true.
And it has taken him to all these heights. It's like he's been swept along and he's gotten Medal of Honor. He's a hero cop, but there's also the corruption stuff. And it's when he realizes that he is circling towards the drain now.
Yeah.
That he takes that pivotal step to break away. And that, coupled with the advice that his father gives him, is the key to him restarting control.
Right. Because
then you get him recording his conversation with his with Scotty.
Mm-hmm.
You get him.
Yeah, one of the cops with Ray Liotta's character, one of the corrupt cops.
The one with the mustache.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's how you recognize him. He's the one with the mustache. And then he goes to Bruce Greenwood, another underutilized great actor, and says to him, okay, here's this recording. And Bruce, and he's prepared to, he's kind of thinking, maybe I'll sweep it under the rug. And then Bradley Cooper's like, well, then I'm going to go down to the Gazette and I'm going to go ahead and play this for them. Oh, okay. No. Yeah. And he says, and this is where you get the ambitious side. He sets down terms. I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this and this, and you're going to make me an assistant DA.
I kind of didn't like that. Like that turned me off to his character.
It's the sense, it's a callback to the earlier scene. It's that sense of privilege that he's the son of a lawyer. He's not going to be a cop forever. This is his way out, not just out of this corruption, but out of being a cop. And it's going to launch him on his career. And he bullies the DA into creating the shot. And he had that great scene where it's like Bradley Cooper, Avery sticks out his hand, and the DA is like, I'm not going to shake your hand. You're going to be an assistant DA, and you're on your own. I'm not going to shake your hand.
Shaking it. Yeah, so it's very, I missed that moment, but it's very pointed. Like he's not in the right here.
Yeah, he's not in the right.
It's kind of like to use The Dark Knight Rises as an example, but it's built on a false foundation of his career.
And it's a form of corruption in a sense, because what he's doing, he's literally blackmailing the DA into giving him a job.
Yeah.
Because I mean, his career as a police officer is over. He's either going to be corrupt or he's going to be a rat.
Yeah.
But if he can leverage this into being in
the trail of sin continues.
Yeah. Albeit one where he's hoping that by doing this degree of sin, he'll do good, starting by cleaning out the force and then by doing good in public service.
Yeah. I think the right decision in that moment would have been to give everything up and then take whatever's coming to him. But because he did go along with them for those 2 times. Mm-hmm. But that just turned me off to his character.
Yeah. He's not a likable character. And you see that a little bit later on because he effectively abandons his son.
Yeah.
But it works for him. He succeeds. He leverages that in a way that Luke never can with his circumstance. Luke is doomed the moment he starts robbing banks. Mm-hmm. But Avery,
I hadn't seen it from that perspective. That's interesting.
But Avery, thanks to his father's advice and his own ambition, the unsavory side of his character, because it's like the good side is the guilt. He never loses the guilt of what he's like. He's always he always feels bad about it. He never goes into that corruption. But there's the ambitious side, and the ambitious side wins out, and it wins out for the next 15 years.
Yeah. And we get to that title card 15 years later, and it's like, wait, what? And we don't know who our main character is at this point. We're introduced to Avery's son, who I'm blanking on his name. AJ, yeah. Mm-hmm. Which I should remember that name because it's my cousin's name.
Well, we first see it's Avery's dad's funeral, and that's when we learn two things. One, Avery's now running for Attorney General of the state of New York.
Yeah,
big high profile, and he's doing this because now he's the district attorney in the county. Two, we learn that he and his wife are divorced, and that AJ's been living with her, but now he wants to live. AJ wants to live with him, and Avery says, and this is, totally understandable. It's like, I'm in the middle of running for Attorney General of the state of New York. I don't really have time for this.
This is not the time.
Yeah. But she's basically like, you got to do this, and he agrees to do it. And this question is, why does AJ want to do this?
Yeah.
This is when you start learning who AJ is.
Yeah. Not the most kind of a wayward teen, I'd say.
Oh, yeah. He's wearing gold chains.
Yeah.
What 17-year-old goes to school wearing gold chains?
Yeah.
It's like he wants to be a punk. And of course, he, like so many teens, he wants to do drugs.
Yeah.
So you're in a new school. You want to find out, you want some drugs. Who do you look for? You look for the stoner.
Scruffy kid. Yeah, the stoner.
And who's the scruffy kid at the school? Jason.
Well, yeah. And we don't know who this kid is at first. Yeah. He's just talking to him. It's interesting, this handoff of it sides on the holding back information, but in a drama way of like, who is this? Who is this? Oh, it's someone important. It's so interesting. I don't know if there's a word for that storytelling technique, but like suspense or drama, but it's interesting. This person has to be important, but and it turns out it's Luke's son.
Yeah. And I like how the link up between them is so natural in so many, because so many stories where it's artificial, like you throw them together in an artificial way. You just coincidentally happen to sit them down next to each other at school, but it's one that makes perfect sense that, Jason is kind of, he's got a good home life. Kofi stepped up and become his dad. In a lot of ways, they actually underscore that. But Jason isn't really, he's got a half sister now, and maybe he's kind of feeling a little alienated because, he doesn't have his. He knows Kofi's not his dad, but he's never met his dad, and so you get the impression he's a little bit on the outside at school.
Yeah,
and that's what AJ wants. He doesn't want to be one of the jock crowd. He doesn't want to hit the books. He's basically there because he knows his dad's, off running for Attorney General, which means that, he's not around to parent, and the house is free, so you can throw parties. And but to make all that work, you got to start, connecting with the people that can score you the drugs. And so he looks for the stoner, and he finds Jason. Yeah.
And I love that setup of you've got two parallel dads, and now it's two parallel sons. And it's so great, the storytelling of this. Like, it's not just a gimmick, these character handoffs. It's so good.
And they're both in the exact same spot in that neither of their dads are active in their life.
Yeah.
One is dead. The other one has basically been disengaged for a decade and a half.
Right.
And so they're in that respect, they're in the same place, but they're not the same person. AJ is that white collar privilege. He just, he is such an entitled little jerk.
Yeah, he is.
He is the most unsympathetic.
I did not like his character.
Yeah, and yet, Jason, you kind of get the sense he's just kind of doing his own thing. He doesn't want to make waves yet. He's still trying to kind of, he's that way this way teen show. He's trying to find out, who he's going to be in his life and everything.
Yeah.
And you get this guy who just muscles his way in. He's like, where can I get the drugs? They get the drugs. He gets busted.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you're about to see that track where AJ is going to get off because his dad is the candidate for he's running for the attorney generalship, and Jason's about to start the first of he's about his first mark on a long arrest record. But of course, who comes to get AJ out? It's his dad, and what does his dad discover when he sees him arrested? He sees Jason, and he finds out this is the son.
Yeah. Yeah. He finds out that it's the son of Luke, and there we go. Like, we've connected it back to the beginning.
Yeah. And so he uses, I think, Bradley Cooper's best moment in the movie, in the sense that he is there, he's staring at the screen, he has his aide or his minion telling him, okay, who's the other kid? Jason, I can't remember the last name.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's sitting to me, he's like, what? But he's trying hard. He's kind of like, okay.
Not to give it away. That's suspense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he goes and he does, I think, the most natural thing he does in the entire movie. He unloads on his son, because he's like, I mean, it just how a parent must feel when their kid screws up that badly.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it's not just the drug thing; it's the fact that
it's the weight of his own guilt.
Yes,
yeah, that kid is the representation of his sin that he committed.
Yes,
of killing first off, killing the dad. Mm-hmm. And he did shoot first, and there's probably a part of his mind that he knows he was the one who shot first, and also got the guilt from riding on this thing to get where he is.
He is about to become a major player. He is at an age where the sky is the limit. Who knows? Maybe governor, maybe even president of the United States.
Yeah.
And at this moment in his life, Jason comes back in, and this is one of the things I like. To his credit, he tries to help Jason out.
Right.
He got that great court scene, and it's underplayed, but Kofi's there and Marina's there, and it turns out we're going to go ahead and it's a felony. We're going to make it a misdemeanor. We can't pretend it didn't happen. After all, it's not like he's the district attorney's son, but we're going to go ahead and say, we let him off with the slap on the wrist, and right. the prosecutor actually says that you got somebody watching out for you. So, but of course, Jason hasn't made the connection, and he's just but of course, AJ's been specifically warned off from Jason by his dad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what does AJ do?
Goes back to him. Yeah.
What a jerk.
Yeah.
At this point, I want to slap him around a little bit.
It's just a leech on this kid.
Yeah. Okay. Because in this gets to, in this, I really have to appreciate the plotting, because AJ is still an unknown quantity in this community, because he doesn't have any other friends. He still has these goals, and Jason's the only person he knows to get them. So he needs Oxy.
Mm-hmm.
So he bullies Jason into stealing OxyContin from, which frankly AJ could have done himself. But it's this annoying white collar upper class flex. I'm going to go ahead and let Jason run the risk. After all, AJ doesn't have a record now, but Jason does.
Yeah.
So if Jason gets busted stealing Oxy, Jason's kind of, he's up the creek without a paddle.
Yeah.
Never once crosses AJ's mind. It's like,
send
him to go get the.
Does not care.
In return for and what's the prize for it? You get invited to a party that Jason said he didn't want to go to in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And then of course that's where he discovers that the dad is the guy who shot his dad.
Yeah, and that's such, and it's such a weird moment too, because he's making out with this girl.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He sees the photo, which we kind of skipped over the fact that he's trying to reconnect with his past. We completely skipped over. Yeah.
Ben Mendelsohn comes back in.
Yeah, but first, and this gets to what I was talking about earlier, is that his mother is trying to honor. Marina's trying to honor what Luke asked of him, and she won't tell him. But Kofi, who never, I think, got over Luke,
mm-hmm.
says, well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to go ahead and tell the name. And so that starts Luke off on exploring his past. And that's when he hooks up with Robin, and Robin, shows him some stuff. And it's kind of like he's the first person that Jason's ever met who will talk about his dad.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
he talks about him glowingly.
Yes. And the way he dismisses Avery, because he sees the picture for the first time in the newspaper. Why didn't it show up on the internet article? I don't know. But he just kind of says, that's the pig that killed your dad. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of, let's not talk about him, let's talk about your dad. Yeah. But nonetheless, the seed is planted. He now knows what the cop looks like.
He knows what he looks like.
And of course, it's like the same picture on the wall.
And he's just they're making out, and he sees it as he's going past, and he's like, is that? And they just keep going.
Yeah.
And
but he can't get past it. And he is, and then of course he confronts AJ, and then what does AJ do? Beats the snot out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Now Jason's in the hospital. God, I feel for this guy. This kid gets so many hard knocks against him at this point. And so then it makes what he does so understandable.
Yeah. So do we want to get to that?
Let's go and get to that.
Third place beyond the pines moment. I can't remember what I guess the first is when he meets Ben Mendelsohn's character.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the place beyond the pines where his trail of sin.
Each act
starts.
has one.
Yeah. Each act and each character.
Yeah.
And then Avery's character is when he's going to get offed.
Yeah.
And they take him to the place beyond the pines and they're going to shoot him and he gets away. And then the third one is
Jason gets a gun.
Yep. Jason gets a gun. And he actually first goes to their house to try to kill the dad. And AJ is there, but the dad is not.
Yeah. And this is where, and AJ is still being AJ. But then of course, Jason shows up with the gun, shoots the floor, get the impression this is when the whole tough guy poser mask just vanishes from him.
Yeah.
We never see that. And that to me is the biggest flaw in the movie, is that you don't see how AJ becomes the person he is at the end. You don't really understand who he is at the end. You just get the impression he's not quite the same person he once was.
Right.
But then the dad shows up and, oh my gosh. It's so easy to see, for me, to see what Avery is doing as I do that too. All that guilt just comes bubbling out.
Yeah.
It's like Jason's hit the gusher of guilt. And the question I have, and the film never can possibly answer that, but first of all, I'm wondering if they're going down the same road that DeLuca had guided Avery down in the second scene.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine there's probably plenty of roads that lead to a place where you can dispose of bodies.
Yeah.
But was he really intending to kill him? And he never.
I'm sure it's the same place.
It's just such a powerful scene with him. He has his father's killer, and it's that moment of choice.
This is so great. The trail of sin continues.
Yeah.
Will he break it?
Yeah, and the trail that his father went down, that Avery basically kind of diverted to one that was more beneficial for him.
But he's still got the undercurrent of what he's done.
And now he's out there again, and it's not going to be that your typical Hollywood movie where he's going to, look over there, grab the gun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's got to be a character decision.
Yeah. Avery finally gets to do the thing I think he's been waiting to do for 15 years, 17 years, really.
Mm-hmm.
Says he apologizes.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I get the impression at that moment, if he dies, he'll die fulfilled.
And it's interesting. The way that they open that scene where he's got the gun on him, Avery's first line is, "What did you do with my son?" And we're asking the same thing because it's not very clear what happened with him. Did he kill him or did he not? We just see him get knocked out, and is he knocked out or is he dead? And it's a powerful scene.
And Jason never answers it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because he actually at one point shouts it, and you can tell it rattles. And the acting in between Bradley Cooper and Dane DeHaan, who is just so well done. Where Jason's kind of in charge, but he doesn't know where he's taking this.
Yeah.
And I guess I have, in that respect, to answer my own question, is that he doesn't know if he's going to shoot the guy or not. Mm-hmm. He's deciding in that moment.
Yeah, he's very much like a teen. Like he doesn't know what he's doing, but he's doing it. And
Mm-hmm. And Avery is not. And it's not, again, you're not going to have a Hollywood moment where Avery's going to be like, this is going to do kind of a talk his way out of it.
Yeah,
he's got to let. He's going to have Jason make his own decision. Jason does.
I can't remember exactly how that plays out, but does he take his wallet and then
he takes the wallet,
looks inside and sees,
he runs off, and then he looks and he's getting the money out.
Oh, that's great. Cause then that makes the decision not about that. That's great.
Yeah. He just decides that, Jason makes a choice. He's not going to be that person. And this, again, I think here you can credit the parenting he did receive from Rowena and Kofi. Mm-hmm. He does ultimately make.
And Kofi's a good dad. Like they have that one scene with them where they do the Star Wars reference of "I'm your father."
Yeah, and he's trying. I think he's trying to deal with that, but it's kind of the consequence of having kept so much information about Luke from Jason, is that it makes it so much of greater weight for him, and so he's more tempted or drawn to that.
And Kofi says about Luke, the dad. He was just a guy with a baby, and it's like, that's nope. Like
that was
seen, it's like
that's certainly how Luke thinks of it.
Yeah.
Or not Luke. That's certainly how Kofi thinks of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, considering that he never had a good experience with this guy. The guy showed up to and almost disrupted the baptism. He then attacks him, and then of course after the guy's dead, he brings the cops on. So they got to deal with it. I don't even know if he knew about the money that Romina had stashed.
There's the shot of him with his dad's glasses on, riding down the same road, and that's such a great shot of just the parallels of I get it. He's like, that's filmmaking right there. You show like he wants to be like his dad. You don't have somebody say, "Oh, you are being like your dad."
Yeah, you're the spitting image, son.
Yeah.
So Avery lives, and he goes on to be, he gets elected attorney general, and you see AJ, and to me, that's the biggest open question is so is he kind of a better person? Did his dad basically just say, you're now just going to be a prop or what? You get the impression.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this is where I feel like, I can't remember the actor who plays AJ, but he doesn't quite, maybe he was told not to leave it ambiguous, but you never get a sense as to what he's thinking. Is he proud of his dad? Is he kind of recognizing now that his dad is trying to effectively, redeem himself or what?
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Great movie. That ending it's good. Like it carries on the legacy of the dad, and it connects back to the beginning.
But maybe with a better outcome, because the trail of sin has been broken.
Yeah, and he buys a motorcycle and drives off down another trail
out west, where a person can reinvent themselves still.
Yeah. Okay, so that was our review of Place Beyond the Pines. So let's get to our star ratings for both movies. Okay, Psycho. You got to go 5.
Got to go 5. Yeah. It's one of those films I wish I could somehow watch without not knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But even knowing that, it's a 5.
Yeah, it still works. That's what suspense does for you. Yeah. Or rather Hitchcock for it. Anyway. Okay, so Place Beyond the Pines. You go first.
Okay. I got to give it a 4 because for a couple of reasons. One is that I feel like I'm giving too many movies 5s lately.
Okay, yeah.
And I have to give perspective. The other is the fact that it's a film that I can only rewatch so often because it makes me kind of reflect upon fatherhood in a way that can sometimes be very depressing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And while I acknowledge that that's part of the power of the film, that's what makes the film as good as it is, it's not the kind of film that I necessarily have.
It's not a comfortable movie.
It's not a film I have necessarily entirely positive thoughts about. So
right. I think I'd go 4 too. It's a solid movie. I'd keep that in my favorites.
Yeah, so. But I'm only just seeing the bare beginnings of the connection with Psycho. You got to explain that one to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Now here we go. Every once in a while, 2 films will share a bond that transcend time, space, and even genre. These similarities go down to their DNA. So let's dissect and deconstruct, compare and contrast. It's time to go crisscross.
Crisscross.
Okay, so Mark, what do you think the connection between these movies is?
Sin and its consequences would be the first one that comes to mind.
That's one I didn't notice.
But you've already alluded to it, which is the shift in perspective, the change up in the protagonists.
Right. Yeah, character handoffs, more specifically main character handoffs. Psycho was the first movie to do this. Halfway through the movie, spoilers, Marion Crane is murdered, and we hand off to the main character. And there's that discomfort moment that you get with these things of who is the main character now? Who is it? And we're just watching Norman do his stuff. And this is how you pull these off of you follow the second character as long as you can to get emotionally connected to them. And you see him cleaning up the murder, and it's drawn out as long as it can. Like you just see every detail of him cleaning up this murder, and it hands off the MacGuffin of stop caring about the MacGuffin, throw it in the trunk. It sinks, and now
It's also such a literal handoff in the sense that you take he literally throws away the protagonist.
Yeah, he does.
He completely disposes of the protagonist. You never see the protagonist again. It's so
you know for sure. You're like,
yeah,
he's the guy. Like I mean, if I were to ask somebody this question of who is the main character of Psycho after Marion dies, I would have answered the sister, but you feel for Norman. Mm-hmm. If you can't place it intellectually, you can at least feel the thrust of it. You're feeling for Norman.
And keep in mind, it's such a powerful handoff that it lasts through 3 sequels.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. And then The Place Beyond the Pines does the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it does it twice.
Yes.
So the first one is Luke. He's our main character. Again, we form a strong connection with him. Then it goes to Avery. Mm-hmm. And then eventually it goes to
AJ and Jason.
Well, Jason. It goes to AJ first, but he's just a vehicle to carry you over to Jason. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Yeah, it really is interesting to see how it's kind of like, Hitchcock does it. And I can't remember who the director of Place Beyond the Pines is, but he basically is like, hold my beer. And then he does it, not once, not twice, but not even 3 times, arguably, but 4. Because you think about that brief period with AJ where you think it's going to be him.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then you're right, they do hand off. I thought of it as the 2, but now that we give your description, you're right. It really is mostly Jason's story at the end.
Yeah, you think you're going to be following him, but there's that moment that you're swimming of it. And I love how they do that because it's like, okay, we've been with Avery for a while. What is going to happen? Like, this is not his story anymore. Whose story is it? And then random kid comes in and, who is this random kid? It's the main protagonist from the beginning.
Yeah.
Son. And that legacy thing, it's amazing.
I thought they tipped it off a little early by using his name. And if you remembered the name of the baby.
Oh yeah,
but otherwise,
I didn't pick up on that. But yeah.
But they do make it a bit more explicit when AJ is asking about his family, and Jason says, "Well, my dad died in a car accident or something," and it becomes it unfolds. But really, it's not until the moment where Avery is reacting to discovering who is arrested with his son that it becomes more explicit.
And the key to doing this handoff, you can't just leave the audience swimming with no one. Mm-hmm. They have to be introduced before the death. If not literal death, metaphorical death. Mm-hmm. They're not the main character anymore.
Yeah, you're not.
That's what happens with Avery.
You're not jumping a gap in a bridge. There's a crossover point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in Psycho, this is the clearest example of it. She gets to the Bates Motel, meets him. There's a lot of stuff between them, and then she gets murdered.
I really think it's that dinner scene.
Yeah, that absolutely is it.
Yeah, because that's where you start to really get a sense of Norman Bates as a character.
And you get the thing that there's similar characters. They're both trapped in their little cages. Mm-hmm. And that's the point of that scene. And then, it's ready for her to die. It sounds horrible, but like storytelling.
Place Beyond the Pines, they don't develop quite the same bridge. Because the handoff happens during the chase, and you only get to learn more about Avery afterwards. Yeah,
there's a much smaller bridge.
Yeah,
but they do. I'm glad you noticed that the point of view of the police.
Yeah,
they show that whole chase, and the whole movie up to this point has been from the point of view of Luke. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. Like, you don't think of movies of having point of views like books do, but they absolutely do. Scenes play out from a certain character's point of view, and
But I think nothing underscores that better than the tracking shot at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
that gets you in his skin. And
in many ways, literally, in terms of the fact you see just nothing but his tattooed back for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. And so then the handoff to Avery. We're not with him for very long, but we are in his shoes. Mm-hmm. Film storytelling wise, we're seeing it from his car, and it pans over to his face. It helps that it's an actor that you recognize.
Yes, it is.
But that's not what it's about. It's you go with this guy, and it does cut back for the phone call to Luke, but the handoff is happening of we're following this cop now.
And I think what really helps with that is the fact that it's being done in the chase scene. You feel the adrenaline, you feel the tension. And so it helps to put you in Avery's position.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
novice cop. This is his first shooting. He is just so, he's just dealing with so much in that moment.
Yeah.
And so you have that connection with him in a way that,
this visceral moment of you feel for him.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it is the storytelling of like that POV shot. I'm glad you picked up on that, because it goes from POV from a cop car following them, the first cop car, to the second cop car. We're following again, pan over, see a character's face. We're connected with them.
Yeah.
And we follow with him through the second third of the movie. And
they do a bit of a misdirect in that when you see the first cop and you're doing the chase, you do see his face briefly, but you don't know who he is.
Oh yeah.
He's a little older. He's a little blander looking. Then you see it's Bradley Cooper, and
he's definitely, we're going to be following him. But, so jumping back to Norman Bates, you feel for him. They make you feel for, and we talked about this it's not just he's cleaning up this murder. You figured out his situation with his mother, and his mother's a murderer. What? And now he's got to clean it up. You feel so badly for him, or I'm assuming you would had you not watched it before.
Yeah.
But it's really that, and Hitchcock is so great with this. It's that moment where the car stops sinking. Of you switch perspectives from the lady in the trunk to, oh no, I'm feeling for the guy standing on the shore wanting the car to sink, and you want it to sink. It's bizarre, and it works that way. But
and it's kind of gets to another aspect of the crisscross that I was thinking about, which is that what you're seeing is these are people who are doing bad things, but you're so sympathetic. You feel for them. You feel for Luke. I mean, yes, he makes bad choices, but as you pointed out, he's not a bad dude.
Yeah.
Avery, he's definitely exploitive, but again, you feel for his guilt and you want him to succeed. Jason is, you feel for him because he is still trying to find his way, and he just uncovers this big family secret, and he doesn't, and nobody is there really to help him cope. The closest is Robin, and Robin himself is an unreliable narrator because he refuses to mention his part in Luke's death. So.
And he also has rose-colored glasses for him.
Yeah, literally, exactly. Yeah.
And then the third handoff in Place Beyond the Pines. Well, again, you pointed out there are four. The third we handed off to AJ, but you've got this feeling as an audience of what does he have to do with this story?
Yeah.
What is his? He has nothing to do with this story. He's just a character to hand it off to our new protagonist, who's connected directly to the one you first followed, who you've got the strongest connection to, Luke.
And the closest you might come to possibly it not being about Jason is when you get introduced to AJ, you have to wonder if he's going to go down Luke's path.
Yeah,
but very quickly, but that doesn't have quite the same punch as the idea that Jason might go down that path.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
that legacy thing.
Yeah.
And that scene with the motorcycle at the end is just so great. That really hit me the first time I watched it.
Yeah. And I have to say, I mean, I watched that scene twice now, and both times I'm like, I just have so much hope for the best for that character.
Yeah.
And it's nice that it's ambiguous. He's really is more able to make his own fate. But, and this goes back to the class thing. It's like, you do have to wonder about what options are available to him going forward. So will he ultimately be facing the same limitations as his dad, or will the fact that he did make that conscious choice and didn't slip into it, that he...
Yeah, I feel like he's escaped his trap.
Yeah.
There's another connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Found.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love this. This is probably the perfect example of a crisscross section, because storytelling-wise, these have very little in common. But the storytelling device that they use, it's kind of like apples and oranges, but there's this one through line that shows how they're connected.
Yes.
And so it's down to their storytelling DNA. And I love that. And it's a direct thing that it was intentional from the director. Psycho, and I think 1937, there's a Napoleon movie that had 3 endings or something like that. And he used both of those or he called it a triptych, I think is what he used for the 3 main characters. But
and it really is such a rich story because of that.
Yeah, it's great. I love this movie just because not just because of my nerdy writer side, but it uses it to tell a story that it's not just the gimmick of, oh, we did the Psycho thing. He had this idea in mind for a story for a long time, and it finally just clicked in of, this is the story I need to tell with it.
And it's such a great story about where America is, because the movie was made over a decade ago.
Right.
And yet I still find it to be so relevant for talking about issues we have in this country today. Psycho is in so many ways a period piece.
Yeah.
And someday The Place Beyond the Pines probably will be as well. But right now it still seems to be one that has a relevance. And of course, with that fatherhood storyline, it's one that I think that will endure far longer after it becomes more of a period piece.
Definitely. It's an interesting connection between our last episode of The Prestige and this one. Prestige is much more subtle, but this one is very definitely about fatherhood.
Yeah. Maybe it's just because it's sort of, because I'm a dad, I tend to look for those connections more in films, but it does seem to stand out lately from some of the films we've been watching. At least it's not an element in Psycho.
Yeah.
There it's motherhood.
Motherhood. Yeah.
And being a son.
In a twisted way. Yeah. Oh, don't use that as an example for motherhood.
It's definitely not the first time you want to show your mom on Mother's Day.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for listening to our episode today. So our next episode will be 1995's Heat and The Dark Knight, and the influence that Michael Mann's movie had on Christopher Nolan. If you enjoyed our episode today, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Transcend Entertainment. That's TRANSCEND Entertainment. And that's it for today's episode of the Criss Cross Cinema Podcast.
But you wouldn't clap yet, because making something disappear isn't enough. You have to bring it back.